All right. Hello and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Jamar. Today is episode 94, and we're interviewing Megan Kay. How are you doing this morning, Megan?
I'm good.
It's good to hear. Good to hear. So let's get this started and dive in. Tell me about growing up and how was childhood?
Um, my childhood, so I grew up in a suburb just like about 30 minutes from Toronto. Um, it was a good and rough childhood at the same time.
Mhm.
Um, I was in a shelter with my mom, an abused woman shelter for quite some time
Okay, I'm
until we
listening.
were until we were able to get proper housing. Um, But yeah, other than that, my childhood was pretty good. Um, Teenage wise, those years were a bit harder with bullying and stuff.
Real quick, going back to the woman's shelter. So you have memories of
Okay,
that?
I do.
How old were you when you were there?
I was young, like 2 or 3.
Okay. So you have, how was it? Do you remember what it was like there?
Um, I just remember the kids, like I vaguely remember it. I don't like fully remember like every single day type, but it was just kind of like a house and stuff, but that's all I recall. And yeah, it's not,
Okay.
I don't remember it super, like a lot of stuff, just some stuff.
That must have been difficult.
Yeah. When we were placed in, we got some housing, so it worked really well. Although, like, the housing area was very, like, impoverished and stuff, so there was a lot of, like, people with mental health issues or addiction issues and stuff.
So, so,
Um, yeah.
so going further, you said you were hopping into your teenage years. What was that like?
My teenage years were a bit harder because I started to struggle with my mental health. Um, and also bullying was a big thing. I was diagnosed with something called Asperger's syndrome when I was 14. So it made fitting in quite difficult.
That's
Um,
that's a form of what do you call it? Autism,
High
right?
functioning autism.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a higher form. Now it's all grouped together and it's just called autism spectrum disorder. But back in the day when I was diagnosed, it was just called Asperger's syndrome. Uh, yeah, school I found very difficult. Um, Not really the work was difficult, it was more interacting with people, connecting with people and stuff. After, I'm still not graduated high school. I'm actually gonna graduate this year.
How
And
old are you?
I'm 24 years old. I turned
Okay.
25 this year.
Okay.
Yeah, so high school was quite a challenge for me, and also my mental health was on the decline then.
What kind of
Um,
mental health issues were you having?
so there was the autism spectrum, and then I was diagnosed with PTSD from when I was younger.
What
Uh,
exactly do you remember the incidents that led to your PTSD?
so they said it was complex PTSD, so multiple life experiences that just like added, I guess. Um, There was some sexual abuse when I was younger from a neighbor, uh, and the
How did
school
that happen?
bullying.
Were you hanging out with the neighbor?
Yes,
And do you
yes.
remember what kind of stuff happened?
Uh, I don't really remember that well. I was very young, and my memory kind of like blocked it out.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, as I got older into teenage years, the bullying, that's when the bullying really started. So I just stopped going to school altogether. I was like, I don't need school then. I started self-medicating, getting Xanax from the streets. I
Was
was
your
actually
was your
prescribed,
mom okay with you dropping out?
she was not, but she also knew that my mental health. Like I was ending up in hospital very often and stuff. So I wasn't even able to do like daily tasks. So how am I supposed to, go to school from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., you know what I mean? When I can't even, get up and do basic stuff. Now that I'm in a better place, I am like finishing high school this year, so that's good. Um, when I was a teenager, I was prescribed Valium and Xanax to deal with my mental health issues. Uh, my prescription got stopped because they realized that it was addictive, obviously, because it's a benzodiazepine. And I started going from pharmacy to pharmacy trying to get more because I would feel it like I started getting withdrawals and stuff, so they cut my prescription. I started getting it from the street, um, which is like pressed Xanax bars. I don't know if you're familiar with Xanax bars.
I
They
know
come
what
in like,
bars are. Yeah, it comes as like
yeah,
breakable into four pieces.
yeah,
I remember
um,
funny story. It's not funny, but looking back, it's funny. But I didn't know what Xanax were at the time. I was very young, and
yeah.
my buddy gave me a few bars, and I ate all the bars. I didn't
You don't
know.
remember?
I don't remember anything, and I woke up. I peed myself.
Yeah,
And you know what the best
yeah,
part
they're
is?
really
It
strong.
just show you how stupid drug addicts are. My buddy who gave me them, he's like, "You wouldn't wake up, so I left you there, and I went home." I was like, dude, what if he's like, I didn't think you were dead. I was like, what if I had died? You literally left me there all by myself.
Yeah, that's not good. And Xanax is very dangerous in the sense that it does make you hiccup, and then once you start hiccuping, you can vomit, right? So he shouldn't have left you. Um,
No,
yeah, never. How I see things, if you're actively using, you should not be using alone now, especially nowadays. Um, but yeah, I turned to the streets to get my Xanax. Uh,
and going back,
af-
what are you were mentioning pressed Xanax? What is that where they're making that? Is it they're making it themselves?
yes, so it's not pharmaceutical grade. It may have contain some Xanax, although it contains a bunch of other stuff. And one day I realized the hard way, and it contained fentanyl. Um, so I ended up overdosing um, in a forest with my friends. And police had to come and all that. I don't really remember, obviously, but um, yeah, it was pretty scary. Uh, yeah, it was not a fun situation at all. Um, after that incident, I started using something called Percocet, which probably a lot of people are familiar with. Um,
Unfortunately, it's all too popular.
yes. After the Percocet, my addiction further progressed within 6 years, and I was using straight up fentanyl. So it's not here, there's different names and it comes in different colors. I don't know. I'm in the greater Toronto area.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
was watching a documentary how I think the green was popular at the time they made it. Like there were different colors.
yes, so dealers dye it different colors as kind of like, this is my stuff type of thing. Um, I was using something called perp, which has a high grade of fentanyl. It's a mixture of stuff. It had a meth in it when it was tested. It has fentanyl in it, carfentanil,
Oh my
heroin,
God, carfentanil takes like
carfentanil.
they said that takes like 3 or 4 grains of salt, like
Yeah,
that size to kill you.
super dangerous, super
Yeah, I think it's
dangerous.
meant for elephant. I think they use that on elephants and stuff.
They do. It's not meant for human consumption.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it contained fentanyl, carfentanil, and all that, and it was called perp. That started circulating in the streets about like 2016. in this area. And yeah, it was constantly, I got super hooked on it. You know, I would wake up in the morning, feel terrible, needed my fix to do anything. It was a terrible lifestyle. I was homeless as a youth. I was homeless from ages 18 and up till about 2 years ago. It was not fun, and addiction is really sad because you meet a lot of great people who unfortunately succumb to such a terrible illness. I've lost a lot of people within the last 2 years to fentanyl overdoses, because it's flooding the streets right now. You can be doing cocaine and overdose on fentanyl because everything's currently laced here. It's hard to find pure of anything here. And it's really sad because we're having younger kids who, go out, maybe get a Xanax pill or something and think it's just Xanax and then never end up waking up.
I mean, when I was growing up, it was different. There wasn't that stuff everywhere. But I said to myself, if you went back to using, would you take the chance? Because you know what scares me is like I used to, maybe I had fentanyl one day, you know what I mean? But back in the day, I used to pop Roxys and Oxycontins and Percocets. Like I can't imagine doing it nowadays. Like you said, it's basically
No,
it's like taking a gun, spinning the barrel, and just
it
playing Russian
is.
roulette.
It's Russian roulette. It literally is. But I was so deep in addiction to the point I I didn't even care. I needed it to get out of bed in the morning. You know what I mean? Or I would be vomiting, worse withdrawals. I would feel like I was crying, tears running down my eyes, but like tears running down my face, but I wasn't crying. It's just the most terrible withdrawals possible. Um, and it took me quite a bit of work to quit. It took me losing some of the closest people to me to actually find the motivation and say, hey, I want to make a change rather than, be another statistic. I was placed on Suboxone for several years, which was very helpful.
Real quick, I'm just curious. I know you dropped out, but just real quick,
Yes.
going back to high school, what kind of grade were you a good student at first and it dipped off, or just curious
Um,
about that?
I was very well capable of the work. Like I was a good student, I would say. I My main issue was the social aspect and my mental health challenges. Um, yeah, but I was a pretty good student, I would say, beforehand.
And what year did you drop out?
Um, 2015.
No, what year of school was it? Like second grade? Oh, I'm sorry, was it like 11th, 10th grade?
Uh, eighth, no, not even ninth, 10th grade.
So it was when you were in high school.
Yes.
At that point, what were you doing with your life? Was it just day in, day out using drugs, or did you try to get a job or improve your life in any way?
I really struggled with human interaction. I really wanted a job. I did want all these things. I really did want a job. I didn't know the process of writing a resume or any of that. I was never taught that, right? I was never taught how to prepare for an interview. Um, so I really struggled with that. I would mainly play video games all day and do my drugs. I was very isolated, spent a lot of time by myself, wouldn't leave my bedroom. Some of my darkest years, I would say, was my teenage years. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember it's what I call the dark times. I was at the time like 27 maybe, but I went through 2 years where I barely left the apartment. I
Yeah.
didn't talk to anyone. My place was so filthy that even when people said, "Oh, I'll come over to visit," I was like, "No," I made up an excuse.
Yeah. It's just like I had no motivation to, succeed. I really didn't. Like I dropped out of school. I would play video games, do my drugs all day. And I now know that that's because of my mental health. I wasn't getting the proper treatment. I was misdiagnosed a lot growing up. Like when I was younger, they thought I had ADHD. So when I was 5 years old, they put me on Ritalin and Adderall.
At
It ends
five
up
years old,
5 years old.
my God, I didn't know they prescribe it that young. It's
Yes.
every time I do some of these interviews, I learn something crazy like that.
Yeah. Like that's super young to, putting a kid on a form of amphetamine. And it ends up I didn't even have ADHD. So instead, it just kept me up for days. I ended up pulling out all my eyebrows, my eyelashes, and I was on stimulants, prescribed stimulants until the age of 12, until they realized, oh, maybe she doesn't have that.
Took them that long to figure it out. My God.
Yes, yes, it was, yeah. So I definitely think that contributed to, my mental health, obviously, because I was taking medication for something I didn't even have.
And there were probably a lot of side effects from it.
Oh, 100%. I wouldn't sleep for days on end. I was very emotional and agitated 24/7. I couldn't concentrate. I started avoiding school. Um, I'm very impulsive. Very, very impulsive.
What kind of impulsive things would you do?
Uh, running away. I smoking weed. First time I smoked weed, I was about, 10 years old.
I was about to be one of my next questions. That's very young.
Yeah. So I started everything pretty young, and it's kind of, I think the biggest part of that was where I was growing up. Kind of like social housing that is typical, you know, like kids that age smoking weed is like a normal thing there and stuff, right? So yeah, started smoking weed pretty young. I was prescribed medication I that was not beneficial for me. In fact, made me way worse, gave me a bunch of anxiety and stuff. Um, I started really having issues in school too, behaviorally. I would not sit at my desk and stuff and cause a ruckus, drive the teachers a bit crazy. Um, yeah, it's sad because looking back at it, I was just a kid and I was on so many like intense medications. And I wonder, sometimes I wonder how would my life turned out if I wasn't like misdiagnosed and prescribed, like if I actually got the proper help when I was younger. Um, yeah, it's just a sad circumstance. But it's actually very common, apparently, where people are misdiagnosed with ADHD and then prescribed a bunch of medications and they end up not having that and becoming way worse. As I got older, I was prescribed something called lithium because everyone thought I had bipolar for some time. I was tested and ends up I did not have bipolar. Lithium made me very sick. I would wake up every morning vomiting and stuff. And yeah, it was not a great time.
No, I can imagine I'm bipolar, but I think I'm correctly diagnosed. It's the minute they gave me
Yeah,
medication, I felt normal. I was like, oh, this must be what it like, be what it's like to feel normal.
yeah. I was the exact opposite. It really took a toll on my stomach. Well, lithium's very, it's heavy. It's a heavy duty medication, right? It really took a toll on my stomach and my mental health. I would be like sleeping nonstop. it made me gain a lot of weight. So I was very self-conscious about that. And it ends up I didn't even have bipolar, right? So it's like my question for like the pharmaceuticals and all those, you know, top of the league people is like, why are we prescribing if we don't know 100%? Because that obviously affects, you know, a 5-year-old. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's the thing about mental health is from what I understand, it's consider it their most very, very educated guess. You know what I mean? Like, because
yeah,
part of the diagnosis is to see if the medication helps.
yeah,
You know, because if I think you're bipolar and then I give you bipolar meds and you say to me, oh, my life has changed for the better, obviously you needed that medication.
yeah.
But like
100%.
you said, sometimes it sucks where it doesn't work.
Mm. Yeah, for like a lot of my childhood, I kind of felt like a guinea pig. You know, I was on so many medications growing up. Now I'm just on one medication, just a antidepressant, and that works perfect for me. But I was on like, at some point, I was on like 7 pills a day, you know, growing up, and that's like a lot for a little kid. Um, with all the side effects and that, especially when they weren't beneficial, because I didn't even end up having the things they initially thought I did.
So once you got older and you were hanging out at home just doing drugs all day and playing video games, how did you afford to do the drugs? Like, because obviously it costs money.
Yeah. So I would boost. I would go, you know, I was a thief for a while. I would steal, you know, I
You
have
were
a,
a what? Oh, a thief.
yes.
Okay.
Um, I would boost. So like go into stores, just take stuff and then sell it. Um, yeah, anything, you know, my main priority was my drugs at the time. You know what I mean? Like I kind of joke around nowadays because now, you know, I'm working, I'm graduating high school, and I'm like, wow, I had more money back then than I do now. You know? But yeah, I also I was very popular, you know, live streaming back in the day and stuff. I used to get paid from YouTube and stuff. You know, I would make videos on Nintendo and stuff, but immediately that that would go straight to my drugs. And it's sad because I really did have a future, you know, um, making videos and video editing and all that stuff. And it's like I just threw it away, you know. I was getting paid for it and stuff. I was getting sponsors, and instead I just, you know, the drugs were more important at the time.
Yeah, it's amazing how once we get addicted, drugs they are the number one priority in our lives.
Exactly. And I had to be very careful because, you know, a lot of my viewers were younger, you know. They were like about the age group of 9 to 13, and I was like, you know, I'm starting to you're really starting to like see the effects and stuff, and I decided to quit because I didn't want to be, you know, a bad example for these kids. I didn't want them to see my decline and stuff. So I ended up quitting that. Um, ended up homeless. I was in shelters on and off for about 5 years.
How did you end up homeless? Your mom threw you
So,
out?
so I was living with my mom. Although I love my mom to death, she did a great job raising me. Um, she really struggled with my me on substances, right? We're not the best people to be around sometimes, you know, 24/7 on drugs. Um, I started stealing from my own mom, which I never thought I would do in my life. And it hurts now to think about, but I was taking money from my mom's wallet, you know? I'd I would cause a scene. I would throw stuff. I was very hostile. I ended up going to several youth shelters, several women shelters, sometimes just straight up on the streets in Toronto.
Must have been
We have
scary.
It was, but at the time, my drugs were more important. Oh, I'm scared. I guess I'll just, go shoot up or something. You know what I mean? Like, once the drugs were in my system, there's no fear. And I can't really imagine, being on the streets now, now that I'm clean. But like, while I was on drugs, it like completely masked my current living situation.
It just didn't matter to you.
Yeah, drugs came first, and that was it. It came before my friends, it came before my family, before my housing, before any relationship. It came before everything. It came before my life, because I've overdosed so many times. Like, I've overdosed at least 10 times, and Narcan has saved my life. In Toronto, we have something called safe injection sites.
Yeah, no, I've read a lot about it.
Yeah, so I was going down to Toronto. I would take advantage of that, but I'm not from Toronto. I was mainly living up north, which is like an hour and a half train ride or bus ride, about an hour, hour and a half. So a lot of the times I'd be like, I'm not gonna go to the safe site and make sure I'm fine. I'm just gonna use in a washroom or something, which is like it's really dangerous, especially now with everything being straight up fentanyl. It's really dangerous.
Yeah, I remember that was to me a controversial thing to me personally.
It is.
When someone first told me what that was, I was like, you're just enabling drug addicts to do it more, blah. But then I said to myself, well, if you just think about it logically, one, no matter what, they're going to do it.
Yes.
Whether they're using toilet water or puddle water off the street, they're going to use, they're going to get the drugs.
100%.
Why not give them a chance to live? And because this girl Misty in my group, or I'm sorry, in our group, and she attends every now and then. She has her own group also. She has a saying that she taught me: "Dead people don't recover."
They don't. Like,
So, to
and
me now, I believe in the safe injections. I think it's not the best thing, but if for the situation we've been presented with, it seems like a logical answer. Let's keep people alive.
yeah,
The HIV rate has gone down. The hepatitis C rate has gone down. And right now, I sound like an advertisement for it. But like I said, I think it's just the smartest thing to do right now.
100%. Using alone right now is like the number one killer. Overdose rates are like the number one killer now, which is it's crazy. It's
That's the one thing
scary.
if they're educating a drug addict how to properly do things, that's the first thing they tell them is don't do it at the same time as your friend. You do it separately so your friend can call the
Exactly.
ambulance, God forbid.
Exactly. And you never know. Like, there was a story out of Toronto where a couple smoked a little bit of perp, that stuff I was talking about, off of tinfoil. They did it at the same time. They both ended up overdosing, and one of them ended up passing away. Um, but yeah, it happened so fast too. Um, and you always have to make sure you're near people. I I can't stress enough. People should never use alone, because then they have no chance. It's Russian roulette. It's literally Russian roulette, and it's super scary. Fentanyl's super cheap. Um, it's flooding the streets. We have younger kids now. We have 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds overdosing off fentanyl. It's sad.
It really is.
Yeah, it is.
Right now, we write articles for my group, and right now I am writing an article on opioid crisis and what's going on with that, and that's fentanyl, fentanyl, fentanyl.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad because dealers will press it into pills so people think, oh, I'm taking a Percocet or I'm taking a Xanax bar, and then they end up never waking up. It's sad to me. Every drug right now is Russian roulette. I've lost people. They thought they were doing cocaine, and they ended up overdosing. So you never know nowadays. You really don't. I've read stories. This hasn't happened in Canada, but I've read stories in, I think, Connecticut. Dealers were using the same scale to weigh fentanyl and then weighing cannabis, and then you had people overdosing just because they're using the same scale.
I never thought about things like that. And
Yeah,
accidentally, when it's actually technically not done on purpose. Wow.
yeah. Like, they just don't think about it. They're using the same scales, but someone with no tolerance, that's going to make them drop. It's scary. To me, it's like chemical warfare in a sense. So little can kill someone. I had
Yeah,
quite a tolerance. I was using grams a day at one point, you know? But it really is scary. I've lived circumstances where I was in, bandos, abandoned houses, and someone would smoke it off of foil, and then someone next to them would drop because they had no tolerance to it. And there's stories of people even, touching it and dropping, right? That's how dangerous it is.
yeah. So at what point in your life did you realize I had a problem and I needed to get help?
I was completely in denial. When in addiction, you don't see it. You really don't. I was in jail for a bit, still didn't see it. I checked into a jail at the age of 21, weighing 87 pounds,
Wow.
5'4" and 87 pounds. And even the jail guard was like, "Wow, my 11-year-old daughter's bigger than you." Like, um, my biggest, I guess, mindset change was I lost my ex, to the same stuff. And he would always say, you really need to get off of this. You really need to get off. And I've noticed that with addicts. They're very like, they have everyone else's back, you know, but they don't really see when they're in active addiction, they don't really see that they also need help. They're too busy helping everyone, making sure everyone else is good. I've noticed that's a common thing with addicts. Um, but yeah, he passed away uh, February 2021, and I literally changed my whole mindset. I was like, I'm gonna get on Suboxone. I'm gonna do good, because he always told me, you need to get off of that. It's gonna end up killing you. Um, got a job, got an apartment, just as fast as things, went downhill. I was able to change my life. It took a lot of therapy. It took a lot of motivation, it took a lot of everything. But now I'm working full time, um, graduating high school
Oh,
this year.
congratulations.
Thank you. And I want to help, my community with, addiction and stuff. I want to become a peer support mentor. So people with lived experience, just helping people, in bad circumstances now. I want to try and do that. Yeah.
So this was recently that this was the first time you ever seeked out help?
Yes. I didn't believe I needed help. Everyone else around me was like, Megan, you're gonna die. You know, you're gonna die. One day you're just not gonna wake up. And, that wasn't even enough. You know, that wasn't enough to get it through my head. It had to take me losing someone I'm really close with and spoke to every day. But I used it as kind of motivation, and I know he wanted to do the same thing at the end of the day, is get clean and help others struggling with the same thing. That was my biggest motivation, honestly.
Was losing someone. So I'm sorry to hear that's what it took to bring you to that
Yeah.
point.
I was in complete denial, though, in active addiction, Oh, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong, Meanwhile, I I lost 50 pounds, Like, you just really don't see it when you're in active addiction. You really don't. Him passing was a wake-up call for me, to be honest. And it's sad that it took that, but now, I want to do what he wanted to do, and that's help people at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's something that's very important, that it's even in, our steps in the Alcoholics Anonymous steps is giving back. The 12th
Mhm.
step is known to just be of service to others.
Exactly. And I do think it's more helpful for addicts, for people with lived experience, It's kind of like I walked in those shoes before, I know how it is, but life is worth it, It is worth making a change and making something for yourself. It takes forever and it is very difficult, but at the end of the day, it is worth it.
So how is life like for you nowadays? What are you doing with your life?
I work full time. I'm about to graduate, I
What do
have a
you
couple
do
of
as
degrees.
as far as work? What do you do?
Um, I work in the food industry.
Okay.
Yeah, I was very grateful for this job. The owners are great. Um, it was a lot of like what I noticed getting clean is I need to keep myself busy nonstop.
Yeah.
I constantly have to be on the go. I notice my mind is constantly going, hence why, I turned to drugs in the first place. I need to constantly be kept busy, you know? Um, so
Yeah, I
yeah, I
mean,
work full
that's
time.
no, you
Sorry?
continue. No,
I
continue
work
on.
full time. I'm about to graduate. I try to fill my time up with healthy things now. I like skateboarding, I like basketball. Um, just filling my time up.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, my biggest thing on my days off from work is I do this. I do 3 to 4 podcasts every day, or every day I'm off. So it keeps
Yeah,
me busy. And it's also interesting talking to people, finding out all different types of stories and things like that.
yeah. No, it's cool. Hearing different people's stories and stuff and knowing that, it is possible, you know. When people think fentanyl, they're like, oh, that person's gonna end up passing and stuff, but it is possible. I was an IV user of fentanyl for years, and I'm still here, and I was able to change my life. It took a lot, but I was able to.
And that's all that matters, is you're able to change your life for the better.
Exactly.
Because you're a living example that once you do the right thing, a lot of things will fall into place.
Yes, 100%. And I'm so grateful. Um, Narcan has saved my life a lot. I've had so many overdoses, and Narcan really has saved my life. Um, you know, but
Yes.
it's just sad for the people that use by themselves and don't really have, you know, that's the biggest killer, I would say. Never use by yourself. It doesn't matter what it is anymore. It really doesn't.
So it sounds like you're a believer in harm reduction.
I am, But at the same time, harm reduction does, safe injection sites does come with its flaws. Um,
What
I
what do you see as flaws in that system?
dealers take advantage of it, you
Yes.
know, 100%. They take advantage of it. You know, they will, use that system to get more customers type of thing, right? Um, I've noticed that, but that's honestly the biggest thing. And I know people argue, well, that's just providing them the necessities to use and stuff. But realistically, I was going to do it anyways, like you said earlier on. Whether that be, me getting the water from a washroom, me using the same needle, I would have done it back then, if I didn't have those things. If I didn't have, those harm reduction things necessary, I probably would have done it.
The one thing I'm also up in the air about, well, I'm still trying to decide is it good or not, is safe supply. You know what that is?
Like the needles and the water and the cookers and all that.
No, so safe supply is they literally provide you with the drug. Like it's
Okay,
some
yes.
places, I think it's
Vancouver's
British
starting to do that.
Columbia,
Yeah,
BC,
Vancouver's starting to do that.
Vancouver. Yeah.
Vancouver's terrible with drugs. I know a couple people out there. Um, East Hastings, it's pretty bad. It looks like how Kensington, Philadelphia looks, you know? I don't know if you're familiar with Kensington, Philadelphia, but that's like the biggest fentanyl like market, open drug market. Um,
Yeah, that's what people say. It's like going to a flea market there where just people are set up and
exactly.
selling
And
their
East
stuff.
Hastings in Vancouver is like kind of similar, you know? But I'm kind of up in the air about it too, only because, how about for the people who got clean? It's like I I think if it does become a thing, I think a lot of, recovering addicts will struggle with that.
Yeah, I think that might encourage people a little bit more to not have to quit. Saying, "Oh, look,
Exactly.
even my supply is now not going to have fentanyl in it, so I don't have a problem."
Exactly. Yeah, I'm kind of up in the air about it too.
But that opinion can change. Like I said, when I first heard of these safe injection sites, even when I first, got into hearing about Suboxone and methadone and things like that, and how it
Mm,
actually worked, I was against it. I was
yeah,
120% against it. And then I learned more, I read more, and I'm a very logical person. So if you could prove points to me and I have nothing to rebut with those points,
mm.
then, I have to accept it.
It's good. I would say it would be good for people who, are going out and trying. They use cocaine, for example. It's even, it's risky using cocaine in the sense that now cocaine's being laced or uh, Xanax says that's the thing, you know? You never know what's in anything nowadays. Dealers use the same scales, so cross contamination right there. You just never know. And I think they're just trying to, make sure that they're preventing deaths and stuff, but at the same time, I do think it's enabling. I'm kind of like torn between it. I do think it would be beneficial in some ways, but I also think it wouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. So that's something I'm up in the air about. But I think I'm going to end up, I don't know. My big thing is that I just don't want people to die.
I don't either, no. And we're losing a lot of people, and it's getting, you know, we're losing kids now, like 15-year-old, 14-year-olds, like that, they're babies still, they're kids. And
Yeah.
it's sad. There's so much potential. When I was a teenager, I definitely um, tried a bunch of stuff, but there wasn't that threat when I was a teenager of, like this might be like this is Russian roulette. Now there's that threat, everything's risky. Everything's risky.
Yeah, it really is.
Mm.
So one of my last questions for you is, do you have any advice for people listening and watching?
My advice would be if you're actively using, please do not use alone. It doesn't matter the substance anymore. Um, and life is worth living. It really is. I went from living on the streets, sticking a needle in my arm every day to, being a functioning member of society, which I never could have imagined, but it is possible.
No, it's absolutely possible. See, many
Mm.
people that they do get better. Just like people say, we do recover.
Also, my advice would be, find the underlying cause, you know, where you prescribe something and then got addicted that way, or are you kind of self-medicating? And it's very important that people, deal with their underlying causes so it's more, helpful for when they quit. Like personally, I was, avoiding a lot of trauma in my past. So that's why I would constantly use, because if I'm just sitting here, obviously I'm going to have like memories and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that would be my biggest advice is, find the underlying cause and definitely don't use alone if you're actively using.
Yeah. When it comes down to getting to the root cause of things, that's the only way to get better because if
Exactly.
if you don't know why you're using this, you're not going to know how to go about getting yourself to quit.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think that's all we got for today. Did you have anything else you wanted to throw in there?
Um, we do recover.
Yeah,
We do recover for real. It is possible.
it absolutely is. All right. So for anybody watching or listening, give us a like below. Also, if you like what you heard and saw, go below and click subscribe. You'll be able to see when we update, or I apologize, upload new videos. Also, check us out on Twitter, Reddit, Instagram. If you go to our Facebook group page, there is a link for an events tab. You click there, and below will give you all the links to our nightly Zoom meetings. So that's all I have for today. And until next time.